This Week in Startups is brought to you by Walker Corporate Law, specializing in the representation of entrepreneurs. Visit walkercorporatelaw.com. Pilot. Pilot takes care of your bookkeeping from start to finish so you can focus 100% on making your business succeed. Go to pilot.com/twist for 20% off your first 6 months of Pilot Core. And Capterra, the leading free online resource to find your best software solutions. Visit capterra.com/twist for free to find the right tools to make 2019 the year for your business.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis, an angel investor and entrepreneur, sometimes journalist, writer, here in Silicon Valley. I've invested in over 200 startups and done 10 years worth of this podcast, over 900 episodes. And in our 10th year, we wanted to bring you a parade, a stampede, a gaggle, if you will, of unicorns and their founders, people who have built a startup worth over $1 billion. Why is that important? Because every year, tens of thousands of startups are created. And out of every 10,000 or so here in Silicon Valley, one will become a unicorn. And that means they've reached, in all likelihood, over 9 figures in revenue. Back in July of 2008, Steve Jobs and Apple launched an app store. Back then, the iPhone was in its 3G version, the third iteration, and they had a whopping 500 apps in the App Store. My guest today, Adam Foroughi. Did I get it?
That's right. You got it.
Oh, God. Thank the Lord. Adam Foroughi is the co-founder and CEO of AppLovin. Now, if your mind immediately went to McLovin, you're not wrong. That's his favorite character from Superbad. Is it Superbad?
It was Superbad, yeah.
It was Superbad, which is a great film. I have to rewatch it. And Adam had a thesis. He thought this app store would create a legion of businesses that were sustainable and that would need marketing services and support. And boy, was he right. The company, since that time, has become worth over $2 billion and raised over $1 billion, and I'm assuming makes hundreds of millions of dollars. Am I in the ballpark?
You're in the ballpark.
It's got to be 9 figures if it's worth $2 billion, right?
I always have to think. That's a big number, but yeah.
It's over $100 million in revenue. Yeah. How many employees now?
We have about 230.
230. So this is an efficient company then.
Yeah, we're pretty lean. We try to keep it that way.
What was your motivation when you go back to the 2011 you started?
We started around 2010, 2011 when we were tinkering in mobile. You're
tinkering in mobile. You see the App Store. And what was your insight? What led you to say AppLovin needs to exist? Do you remember the moment?
Yeah, I'd started a couple marketing companies on desktop and done really well there. And so I was sort of in a mindset of traffic shifting to mobile, get down to Palo Alto, and just figure it out. And so we started actually building apps. And the first couple things we did were apps on the App Store. And I had no interest in getting into marketing services for a third time. And when we built the apps, we realized, we're having a difficulty growing these apps. One reason was the apps sucked, but really we were not app developers. But the other challenge we had was there was no good solution to market your app back then. And so when I saw that and I saw how big mobile could become, you were seeing the beginnings of traffic shifting to mobile. And if you had a little foresight, you could realize how big mobile was going to be. I realized there was a need for a marketing platform. And so we just went back to what we knew and dumped the apps, refactored what we were building, and got into marketing.
What was the first app? I'm curious.
We actually had a dating app called Mingle. It was
Mingle?
It was not very good.
So like a Tinder, or this might be pre-Tinder.
If I had the foresight to build a good app, it might have been like Tinder, but it was a terrible app.
Yeah, and what was the first product that AppLovin came out with?
The first product that was AppLovin V1 was an app discovery app. And it was join a social network, you and your friends connect, and you could see the apps that your friends were using. And based on those, you could find an app to go download.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating.
That was V1, yeah.
So you would log in or authenticate and see what apps had been installed on the phone, or did people put them in manually?
No, you could actually, if people gave you the permission, you could see the apps that they were using. So you and I would go connect on this social network, and you could see the apps I was using. Well, at the time, app discovery was a problem, and still today it is. And the one thing we realized when we first launched the app is people still want to see pictures of fun things that are going on in their social graph, not a bunch of pictures of apps. So the app itself wasn't sticky, but that recommendation algo was. And so that became sort of the V1 that we rolled into our current platform.
Why is app discovery such a hard thing for people to solve? Is it just because Apple was never good at social software or algorithms? Because it does seem like the Play Store does a pretty good job of telling me what I need.
I think the real problem is the content is really fragmented and the cost of development is really low. So if you get a hit, there's going to be 100 other hits or 1,000 other hits in that same genre, or maybe not hits, but copycats. And so at the time, utility apps were big and you had flashlight app. Before Apple built in the flashlight into the device, you needed to download a flashlight app. Well, if you search for flashlight, there's 1,000 flashlight apps. Which one is the credible one? Which one's the really low quality version? Who knows? And I think that's really the problem, and it's not easily solvable by the App Store.
Yeah, Apple has done a better job of the duplicate app concept than Google, because Google's a little more freewheeling, right? Anybody can upload anything without being approved in the Android store, correct?
Still to this date. So Apple does police duplication and content that's a ripoff of other content. Google's an open framework and open platform, so anything can get up there. So Google's problem is even bigger than Apple's, although Google has more search power, in history than Apple does.
Yeah, it's a bit of a free-for-all on the Play Store. But now they have like Play Certified or Play Reviewed. Did they add a level to make it less chaotic?
They've added a level, but with the millions of apps that exist today, it's a little hard to be less chaotic. The chaos has only grown from 2011 to now, and the problems have been magnified, but I think people have found alternative forms of app discovery than just the App Store search.
What is the main one? Is it this, like, I'm playing Clash of Clans or something, and it's like, hey, you're playing for free, we'll give you some mana or gold or whatever if you try this app? Is that the main thing, the sampling and cross-pollination? Is there a category for that? What's it called?
I think so, and that's what we evolved into too.
Yeah.
And in gaming, what ended up happening is the ad ecosystem became really high value because people started playing these free-to-play games, and the free-to-play games a lot of times are challenging, require a fair amount of skill, but people would reach a point where they either had to pay to continue on, or they could watch a commercial to continue on, and that commercial ended up high value, and a lot of times it ends up a commercial for another app, and that leads to probably the largest form of app discovery today.
And that's your main business? People.
That's a part of our business,
Yeah. What do people pay to install apps? I know that there's been this sort of bit of a problem in the startup ecosystem that I operate in as an angel investor, where the whales, I guess the people who spend a lot of money on Candy Crush or Clash of Clans, the people who are willing to spend $100 a month on mana coins or whatever, which I did on my backgammon app, which is so weird. Can't believe that I gave $100 to a backgammon app, but I was like, this backgammon app is so good, and there's so many players on it that I'm happy to give them $100 like twice a year. And I think about like, why am I giving them $200? And I just thought to myself, I want to see them succeed and keep adding quality to this app. So to me, it's like going to a backgammon club and paying $50 to be a member or something. But how is that fact that there are these apps that are highly monetized impacted app installs? What does it cost to get an app install in the United States today?
The costs are only going up. So there's a wide range, and it just depends on the genre of app, whether it's gaming or non-gaming. Huge range. But I think what ended up happening over the evolution of our company is you saw a huge expansion of mobile gaming happening, both because of consumer experience. The handsets got better, connectivity improved, and games on mobile became really high quality. So the gaming ecosystem started exploding in usage, and everywhere you go now, people are playing mobile games. The other thing that gave mobile gaming companies a big advantage is attribution. On mobile, all their revenue flows through either Apple or Google or the ad platforms that exist on mobile. So they could start buying in an arbitrage model where they spend, let's say, $2 cost per install, but they know if they're going to generate more than $2 over time. And then you had all these traditional companies that have businesses cross-platform. There's no really good way to tie all the revenue from the user together across platform. So they had a big disadvantage in marketing. And so these gaming companies were able to really increase the cost per install over time and get to a very efficient point because they've got an arbitrage that's fully measurable, whereas other businesses have had more of a challenge figuring out how to unlock the value of mobile marketing.
Yeah, if you're doing a photo sharing app or a note-taking app or a dating app, it might not be clear exactly what your revenue is going to be, or if you had a cross-platform game, but for the people making Clash of Clans or Candy Crush, it's extremely clear how they make money. They can model it perfectly.
Yeah, they can model it perfectly. And most of us at this point have heard of Candy Crush and Clash of Clans, but there's thousands to millions of other games that people haven't heard of. And the 500th solitaire game in the App Store that creates a new spin on solitaire, isn't known by anyone in the world. So they go
back to
spend
that
some
discovery issue.
but then they go spend some marketing dollars. They're going to get no users or they're going to get some users. And when they spend, they know the exact amount of revenue that they're generating against that spend. And that model is really powerful.
At the peak, I heard Clash of Clans, Candy Crush, these were doing $2 billion a year in App Store revenue. Does that sound right to you? $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion?
The numbers have gotten big and they've only grown over time.
What do you think it is for a top 10 app in the App Store in terms of grossing revenue? What do you put it at a year?
Candy Crush and the King suite of products are publicly reported, and I think it's around $1 billion a year over that subsidiary.
$3 million a day in revenue. When you think about it, that's incredible. $3 million a day in and day out. What do you think those companies spend a year, without naming them, because they're probably, some of them are your customers, but what do you think one of those top group spends on a percentage of revenue? If they make $1 billion, do you think it costs them $300, $400, $500 million to get that $1 billion?
Range sounds right. So King is, since they're publicly reported,
right.
I think their margins, I think they're generating, if they were standalone, $500-600 million a year of EBITDA. So it's a very profitable business. And what happens a lot of times is once you build your base of audience, people have been playing Candy Crush for years. Every couple of weeks, there's a new 50 to 100 levels added. And so it's like waiting for your favorite sitcom to come out the next week. There's these addicted players that will play for the rest of the time. And King is very good at adding content. And because of that, you're left in this environment where these gaming companies that are scaled have a ton of revenue that's just owned. And it will just pour down to the bottom line. And then they do market for new users as well. So they're in a very good position because of this huge user base.
All right. One thing that I've been hearing over and over again is that we've reached peak smartphone, that smartphones have peaked in terms of usage, in terms of the upgrade cycle, in terms of the opportunity. When we get back from this quick break, I want to know, based on data, based on what you know, being at the nexus of all of this spend on marketing, I want you to tell us if mobile has peaked or not when we get back on This Week in Startups. Walker Corporate Law is a boutique law firm that specializes in representing entrepreneurs and their startups, and they charge a fixed fee. So whatever you want to get done, you're not going to have that terrorizing PDF coming from your law firm, and you open it up and you wonder, is this the month that I get a huge legal bill? Nope. Scott Walker is going to tell you what you're going to pay, and he's got attorneys working with him in his partnership who have decades of experience. This is a boutique firm, and they specialize. What that means is flat rate pricing, no getchas, gotchas, no surprises, and world-class, multi-decade attorneys who've done this and who are choosing to do it. And you can reach Scott Walker directly, the founder, just like me. You can reach him directly, 415-979-9998, 415-979-9998. Scott at walkercorporatelaw.com. Put Jason sent me in the subject line, Scott at Walker Corporate Law. Say Uncle Jason sent me. He knows who Uncle Jason is. And you can visit walkercorporatelaw.com. But go ahead, email Scott. He's a mensch. He takes care of the people I send to him. He is a great attorney, and he does a great job for founders. He's chosen the path of supporting early stage founders. And just like me, he operates right in that early stage, the first couple of years of a startup, to set them up for success. And he's great at what he does. Mergers and acquisitions, licensing arrangements, terms of service, privacy policies, all that stuff he can do for you. And he can do it at a great price with fixed fees. No surprises. So go ahead, 415-979-9998 or Scott at walkercorporatelaw.com. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode. Hey, everybody, welcome back to This Week in Startups. My guest today is Adam Foroughi. He is the co-founder and CEO of AppLovin, which he founded back in 2010, 2011 with a bunch of failed apps, realized that he needed to figure out this discovery thing, and here we are a decade later almost, and discovery's still not solved. It's still a disaster. Apple seems to have made a ton of changes to the App Store. Like, I can't find the rankings anymore. Why did they get rid of the rankings? Is it too easy to game and they wanted to deprecate that concept of rankings?
They're still there, and it's more of a popularity contest in terms of rankings. What we've seen over time is the percentage of downloads in terms of organic downloads has diminished a lot. The majority of all downloads for companies that we see, especially in gaming, are paid acquisition. And then the remaining part end up being a lot of times Apple features. Their team does a very good job of hand selecting games that are fun to play or apps that are good to use. And so that's the new form of discovery.
That editorial that Apple does is so good now. I mean, I remember when one of our investments, got App of the Year. I don't know if you remember that 2 years ago, they got App of the Year. And I was like, wow, that they wrote like this incredible article of it. They have a decent editorial staff over there now, huh?
It's really good. And Calm is a client of ours. And they've done a great job of scaling a business.
Yeah, with the subscription revenue, that seems to have changed everything in the App Store. What is the impact of Apple subscriptions? 30% for the first year? Was it 15% if people renew? What impact has that had on business? Will we see Clash of Clans and those kind of companies move from this pay for gold and usage and levels to just pay us $20 a month and you're good?
It hasn't gone there much yet in gaming, because I think what ends up happening a lot of times with something new like that is someone has to crack the high consumer value experience, and then everyone starts replicating that experience. So I know today a lot of the gaming companies are testing with, hey, here's a new part of the app. You can only unlock it if you're a subscriber and you get like VIP treatment. If that takes off, you can bet that a whole bunch of gaming companies will replicate and fast follow.
Yeah.
I don't think subscription gaming changes the whole free-to-play movement at all, though.
Right.
Free to use, free to play, free to progress. There's just a lot of consumer value in that.
When we right before we went to break, I wanted to talk to you about the iPhone upgrade cycle and smartphones in general as an opportunity, because we're sitting here in whatever it is, year 11 of the iPhone, and let's give a little credit to the people who came before. It's probably 2 or 3 years of solid smartphone usage before that. We're going to be at 2 decades shortly. Has it peaked? Or if you were to pick what inning it's in, where would you put it in the 9-inning structure?
We're seeing a peak in developed countries in terms of adoption, just because everybody now has 1, 2, 3 mobile devices. So how many more can you get? Yeah. New emerging markets are still growing, so you're still seeing a ton of adoption in India and China and Brazil. So we're a global company. Only 30% of our users are from the US. And that's the beauty of the mobile app ecosystem, is it is global inherently. The other function that exists, at least when it comes to user experience and consumption, is as the hardware gets better and as connectivity shifts to 5G and improves in terms of speed, you're going to get more and more consumer consumption happening. And intersected with gameplay, think how good games can become as hardware improves. Well, look back to the games that existed in 2012 to today. The games that exist today on mobile are dramatically better than what they were. And it's not because developers somehow got smarter or designers got smarter. It's just because of the hardware improving.
The GPUs, that's the key?
Right. Yes.
The graphical processing unit.
And speed. You have to be able to download a file that's bigger. You have to be able to store a file that's bigger. The original iPhones had tiny amounts of storage where you had to uninstall an app in order to get something new on your device. Now that doesn't exist as a problem. And
they also have this offloading of the apps. I thought that was like a brilliant concept, where if you don't use an app for a certain period of time, they just put it in the cloud and they're like, yeah, we'll re-download it if you need it. What impact will 5G have on all of this?
All of this is just positive. It's more speed, more downloads, heavier file size, more storage. You're going to get just more immersive user experiences, and then connect that with AR and all new emerging technologies, and you're going to get just a world where people are going to play more games on their phone. It's the most affordable form and most accessible form of entertainment that we see as human beings today, and that makes it really compelling, and it's only improving.
Yeah, it's interesting. The games seem to be being released as part of, maybe a year or two later, console games are now being released to phone. Like you can play Fortnite on your iPad. Is that a good experience, or is that a terrible idea? Like, in order to win at Fortnite, don't you need to have a mouse and keyboard?
I don't know. What's funny about me is I'm a terrible gamer, so I can't play Fortnite. I don't like getting my butt kicked all day long. But it's the mobile experience is more of a utility extension of those games, I feel like.
Right.
It's not where the core really great player is going to play. And Fortnite's a good example of what is – mobile is a great add-on to it, but it's more of a console-type game.
Yeah.
Mobile is actually predominantly women. Majority of the players are female.
Really?
Majority of the players are aged. When you go on a plane and you sort of look around, you notice who's playing those mobile games, and word games and solitaire games and puzzle games on their mobile device. It's a lot of 40, 50-year-old, let's say 60, 65% women 35% men playing these types of games. And it's just quick to go, much more casual in nature. And so that's the type of games that we see played on our platform.
You just revealed one of my angel investing secrets. I literally go to the back of the plane. I'm flying first class, business class these days, but, let's be honest. But anyway, I will walk down to General Pop in the back, and I'll walk back to the front, and I will look at every single screen. And I've been doing this for a decade, even back when I was in Gen Pop, flying in coach in the last row in JetBlue. I would walk all the way, and I would check every screen just to see what media. It is amazing to you. Are exactly right. The number of people that moved from being on their ThinkPad 10 years ago playing the default Windows solitaire game to being on Candy Crush, Clash of Clans, all of these other games is incredible.
I mean, next time you go on a flight, count the number of people on that flight playing Wordscapes or WordStacks or some of the word games that are popular in the ecosystem. It's crazy. It's like 20-25% of every plane I go on now. I look around and I'm like, you're playing a word game. That's funny because
friends is just addictive.
Has been around for ages. You have to be connected to that one. So a lot of times, some of the new games that have taken off are solitary gameplay. You can play it offline and online, and the experience is great whether you're connected or not.
What impact has Apple allowing people to promote in the App Store? So they accept and they collect ad revenue now in the App Store to promote. That seems like that makes them sort of a competitor to you. How does that stack up in terms of cost and efficacy versus, say, AppLovin?
It's high quality but limited. The beautiful part about an arbitrage-based marketing model is gaming companies or any company in general that has a revenue model and can track marketing dollars against that revenue model and make a spread will spend as much money as they have in their bank account. So simple math, if you know you're going to make $3 on an install, you'll spend $1.50 on that install infinite times, right? It just depends on timing and cash in your bank account, and that's your only limit. Apple's App Store search results for ads are probably the highest quality form of advertising in the ecosystem today, but there's a limit on the amount of volume that you can generate. If people could spend unlimited dollars on Apple search ads, that's probably where they would spend until they had no more cash, but there's just not that much search volume happening.
So the analogy would be like Google search, you have intent. People are typing in tower defense game or, Scrabble word game. What's the other word game where they fill in what's the one that people play on paper where they...
Crosswords, yeah.
Yeah, this crosswords is another one, though, that's a slightly different where you circle the words. Like you look for words in a pattern and they're circled. I forgot the name of that.
I know what you're talking about, too.
You know what I'm talking about, right? Somebody knows the name of this. Anyway, that type of game, they would be doing a word search type game, but you rely on people to be searching, and they may not be searching, which means you don't get anybody who's passive. Whereas you can get people who are passive or engaged in another game, kind of like an ad on television, or maybe even actually the better analogy would be Facebook versus Google ads. One is people that put their intent in a box and hit search, and the other one, you'd maybe know their psychographics.
Yep. Search is always the highest form of intent that we've seen in terms of marketing solutions, because the user is telling you, hey, this is what I want right now. Give me an answer. And if you go off of that, the next form of great advertising on digital today is what Facebook has done in social. And a lot of what we do in the app ecosystem as well is I play certain types of games, therefore I'm going to be interested in these types of apps. And you may be interested in other similar types of games from similar genres. You may be interested in Calm or something else, another type of app from another genre.
Got it. Hey, when we get back from this quick break, I want to talk about mobile phone banks and fraud, because you must have to deal with this at some point. And we've all seen these pictures now and videos on the internet of in India and in China, 1,000 Android commodity phones on racks and a person walking down and doing a behavior and an install on each one to try to fugazi and move something up the charts. I want to understand how pervasive that problem is and how you deal with it, because you have a marketplace and a network, and you must have to put in controls to deal with app install fraud and fraud on mobile when we get back on This Week in Startups. If you're a startup listening to this podcast, you need to keep accurate books, because you're going to be raising money, you're going to be going into due diligence, and you want to make sure that your books are tight. And Pilot is the group that will do that with you. They will help you keep track of your finances, and They are a bookkeeping company that is, and this is super important, they're focused just on startups. They know you're a startup, they know what your needs are, and they will give you a dedicated account manager who takes care of all of your books and sends you accurate, detailed financial reporting every month so that you, your board, your team, your investors, everybody's in the loop and you know exactly how many months of runway you have. You know when you're going to hit break even. You know what you're spending your money on. Pilot bookkeepers are assisted by engineers that automate the most error-prone parts of the accounting work. So think about that. They've got bookkeepers working with engineers to make this process work better and better and better so that your books are always incredibly accurate. And they use accrual-based accounting as well as QuickBooks Online, which is the standard. You're not going to be locked into some fugazi proprietary system that you don't want to use and that locks you in. So stop spending your time tracking financial statements and making cash flow spreadsheets. Nope. Use Pilot just like Airtable, Lattice, Cleanly, Scale, OpenAI, Mixergy. All these great companies are trusting their books to Pilot. So here is your call to action. I want you to add Pilot to your financial stack and get back to work doing what you do best. The first 100 listeners to this podcast are going to get 20% off Pilot Core for 6 months. Go to pilot.com/twist. Pilot.com/twist to get that 20% off right now. Thanks again to Pilot for helping my startups and many other ones keep the books tight. Tight is right. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode. Hey, welcome back to This Week in Startups. My guest today, Adam Foroughi. Foroughi. It's not Italian. It's Persian. We talked about it earlier.
That's right.
Yeah, it sounds Italian, but it's Persian. And you have over 200 people, $2 billion valuation, you raised over $1 billion. That's kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
That's a lot of money. How does life change as a founder when you go from having less resources to having, let's face it, perhaps too much, and you're sitting there at this giant buffet with unlimited calories? How do you stop from gorging, and how do you manage that as the leader?
Well, I was the CEO, and we were the company that walked down Sand Hill and tried to raise $1 million over 4 when we started. Heard no from every single VC that mattered. And
$1 million for 20%?
For 25% of the business.
Oh my God.
Heard a lot of no's. You know.
How many no's exactly?
I think I went to about 8 to 10 VCs.
So 10 no's.
10 no's. I mean, no's
Wow.
as in like, get out of our office. You tell people in 2011, 2012, or even today, hey, we're going to build a marketing platform. They go, that doesn't sound exciting to me.
Why don't they like marketing platforms?
At the time, there were some predecessors in marketing that had done a terrible job of building a business that grew and making it sustainable. So everyone looked at the industry as problematic. It just didn't have good ability to scale outside of the platforms. And what ended up happening for us is we were able to evolve from a marketing business to a much broader gaming business. And that ended up being our compelling story that grew our valuations a lot from that original turn down 1 over 4.
Yeah, you saved that 25% dilution, wound up getting to what, like 10 million in revenue before you even raised around? You bootstrapped it all the way?
So we bootstrapped it. I mean, we were fortunate enough to have our own money. So we put a bit of money to work, but we didn't need to put much.
Like what, $1 million or something?
It was a little less. Yeah, we launched in March 2012. We tried to raise in May, heard the no's, $1 million over 4. We rolled in a few $100,000, rolled that forward to the end of the year. $1 million a month revenue run rate covering costs. I just made a couple calls to angels, 4 over $25 million round, closed it within a couple days. Moving forward, never raised another dollar. And so, yeah, it's crazy how times change for you as a startup entrepreneur if your idea hits. But what was also crazy to me was all the no's around the 1 over 4, given we were already ramping. I was just shocked how, the community in Silicon Valley likes to follow whatever is the hot trend, but sometimes loses sight that founding team with past successes is sort of that's a positive mark. And traction usually means positivity too, so roll with it.
A great team, great traction in a booming market that is.
It wasn't booming yet, so I think that was one of the knocks. 2012, there was no mobile gaming. Yeah, at the time though, the app ecosystem was a little messy, so VCs didn't have the foresight to see mobile gaming becoming as big as it did. I didn't even, to be honest, back then. Yeah. So it was more a lot of junky utility apps.
It's one of the reasons why we always, as angel investors, we never underestimate anybody. And when we see a team that's worked together before and had success before, it's just like, Sure, we'll put in 500, no problem. Like if I had met you at that time, I'd have been like, yeah, here you go, boom, let's roll. And in fact, Calm was exactly like that. They couldn't raise money, but they think they had $10,000 a month in revenue when I met them. And we put $378,000 in when it was a $5 million company or something like that. And like you, they were able to skip rounds of funding because they were cash flow positive. So you did your first round and you only diluted whatever 17% for $4 million at the 25 million
29 post.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's saved.
That paid off pretty nicely for those investors too. But yeah, the 25% I saved was a nice one.
Well, if you think about that as just as a founder, saving 25% of your shares, if you have co-founders, you own 25% each or 30% each, 25% of your shares, that's a lot of money. If it works.
Yeah, the other thing it forced us to do was pay attention to the dollars we spent. That's why we've maintained this lean attitude. But also
because it was your money
to profitability. Yeah, I mean, when you're spending your own money, you don't want to burn cash. So when we started out, it was like operate as lean as possible, work as many hours a day as possible, staff up only when absolutely necessary, and immediately get to revenue and profitability. And when you're VC backed, the mantra you operate under is start spending the dollars, staff up ahead of growth, raise the next round and the next round. And before you know it, you own a couple % of your own business and you're depressed as it gets. I was the only board member until 9 months ago, let's say. So that was great too. I was operating on my own, making all the calls. Wow. Yeah, it makes you a lot more quick. It makes you quick about decision making.
Well, it's like that Taleb book, Skin in the Game. Have you read this yet?
No.
You should get Skin in the Game. The same guy who did Black Swan. We have to get him on the podcast, Jackie. It's a must-get guest at some point. Anyway, basically he talks about there's a lot of people in the world right now making decisions who have no skin in the game, like politicians or et cetera, or people who don't have kids in the school but are making decisions for the school. You get the idea. And I know with Inside.com, when I started putting my own money into it, and I put $500,000 of my own money into it, I was like, you know what? This product is not good enough. I am going to roll up my sleeves and take over the editorial group and make it better because I have skin in the game, like massive, not just my name on it. So you guys raised at that $25 million. Then what was the next raise after that?
The next raise after that was $1 billion over 1.4.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it was a pretty big step up.
And that was almost like one of these going public rounds.
It was a heavy debt financing. We ended up taking an alternate route to most Silicon Valley companies just because of our background and not being able to raise Silicon Valley money. So I ended up going out to China in 2016, seeing it as a booming ecosystem for our own business, but also seeing the markets as booming over there. We took 70% sale of the company to a Chinese private equity firm, $1 billion in, $1 billion for valuation. At some point, the original deal structure that we'd contemplated, we couldn't get approved. And
by the government.
By the government. And so what we ended up doing was refactoring it, doing a convertible note round, not dissimilar to my angel investment originally, and did the same amount of dollars just in debt format.
Got it. What was it like to get the government to call you? How does that work? The government... Who calls you from the government? And do they call you or your attorneys?
You don't want to know. No,
how does that work? By the way, we're not going to approve your financing with China because it's trade what is their rationale? It's like trade secrets to install Clash of Clans?
It's without diving too into it, it's what was interesting was you never expect that to be a reason why a deal derails as you're concepting a deal.
Yeah.
And especially when you're in an industry where, like you said, who cares? We're pushing a solitaire game to a device, big deal.
Right.
But it did happen, and times are changing in the world. And what was interesting about it to me was
it's the State Department, right? Would be the
Department of Justice runs
DOJ,
the DOJ runs the department. But what was cool was when you start and you're small, you don't expect to ever have experiences outside your purview. And to this day, what drives me is just new intellectually stimulating concepts. Being exposed to DC and politics and trying to deal with that process is actually pretty fun. And then I got my MBA and my banking degree and everything else trying to figure out, okay, how do you navigate this turf? How do you take a company that's sort of stuck in the sand because we're stuck in this deal process and bring it out of it and then also operate it along the way? Yeah. So we were able to grow the business 3 times while that was going on. We were locked up for about 15 months, which was in startup land an eternity to be
times
stuck.
It by 7.
You're not giving any options. You can't hire people. No one knows what's going on. Everyone's asking you as a CEO and you can't talk about it.
And people lose focus.
People start thinking, oh, the deal's going to collapse. We're going to go bankrupt. It's like everyone's negative. You're like, all right, just relax. I got this. But it's hard to convince people of it. So we came out of it great. We did the deal. in November 2017.
Who did you do? The same people?
It was with the same fund because they had their government
Orient
approvals. Untitled Capital.
Yeah, got it.
So it was $1 billion with them, and then when we closed that around Thanksgiving 2017, we came off of that, and I full well knew that Chinese IPO was off the table, so I had to look for a U.S. investor, and I met the partner over at KKR's Technology Media Group, Harold Chen, in December in Tahoe. We just met up casually, got to know each other.
Just
over
happened
a
to be
period of
skiing
few
in
months.
Tahoe. You're hanging out at Martis Camp, just chilling.
Yeah, funny enough, yeah.
Yeah.
And so a bunch of...
I'm looking at a Martis Camp place right now myself.
It is really nice with kids, and our kids love skiing.
I went to Sugar Bowl, which is delightful and old school. Have you been to Sugar Bowl at all?
I have, a long time ago.
Yeah, super like delightful and like old school. But then, yum, the Martis Camp. I got a bunch of friends over there. That's like the buttery awesomeness.
If you went this year, it's hard not to buy a place. I mean, the snow was great, but yeah, the environment
I got
is great.
stuck twice in the blizzards this year. And would you get stuck in them too?
We did too, but we beat it by driving out super early in the snow. So we'll just leave at 4 a.m. before the roads are full, right after they plow. That's the trick.
You had to put chains on? We got all-wheel drive?
All-wheel drive, yeah.
Tesla all-wheel drive?
Tesla Model X.
Yeah.
It works. It's great.
You know what? We have a Tesla Model X with the all-wheel drive, but we didn't have the snow tires on it because you have to have the snow tires as well.
Yeah.
And so we're like, and we got stuck. And there was an avalanche. So we got stuck there. Both times I went skiing this year with my daughter. Both times I got stuck in a blizzard. That's my luck. It's incredible.
I mean, it's still a good thing. I don't mind being in Tahoe when it's blizzard conditions.
But see, this has got me thinking. I was debating getting the Martis Camp place versus like a place outside of Martis Camp. But now if deals are going down in Martis, I may need to spend the extra $300 a square foot and get myself some Martis Camp.
There's a perk if you're not looking to save on taxes moving to Nevada. Go to Martis Camp. It's great. And really the best part about it is we have 5 kids, and we started all of them skiing at 2 years old. Wow. And they're amazing skiers now. They love it. Yeah.
All right. When we get back, I'm going to answer this question about fraud, because we didn't get to that in the app ecosystem, privacy, all those other things that are sort of coming to people's mind. And also, you know what? I read some of your blog posts, and you've got some interesting ideas around employees with kids being great for culture, and hiring from within and building talent within as opposed to bringing in experts. So I want to talk to you about those two philosophies that you've applied in your startup when we get back on This Week in Startups. I want you to take some time to replace all that janky, horrible software that is super frustrating, and I want you to do it at Capterra. That's Capterra. Go to capterra.com/twist today to get all of the tools you need at a Yelp-like service where there's all these amazing reviews of what software will solve your problems in business. There are 750,000 reviews from real software users at Capterra, and they do this in 700 specific categories, whether it's sales tools or CRM, whatever you need. And they will value those products based upon categories like how easy is it to use, customer support, features and functionality, value for money. We recently found a really cool piece of software called Pipedrive that we love, that we integrated into our Slack rooms, and it worked amazing because we wanted to get sales automation going so we could sell more ads. You know how it works. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go read some of those amazing reviews and check out those categories. And it's free. It's free for you to use. Go to capterra.com/twist and find the tools that'll let you make an informed software decision. Software is eating the world. Software is how all these startups have a huge advantage against the big companies. And Capterra is where you want to start to make the selection of software simple and to make sure you don't make mistakes. So once again, Capterra, Capterra.com/twist. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode. Hey, welcome back to This Week in Startups. My guest, Adam Foroughi. He is the co-founder and CEO of AppLovin, like Mick Lovin. Amazing that a company with a goofy name can be worth billions of dollars, but like Google, Yahoo, Uber.
Yeah. It sounds a lot goofier when you're not worth billions of dollars.
Yeah.
It's funny. We got made fun of a lot. What are you
You're
going
like,
to do?
AppLovin,
really? You grow out past the jokes, and we were fortunate enough to do that.
We talked a little bit about this, these banks of companies doing all this weird, like, click fraud. Is that something you have to contend with? Do people who run your ads in their games then try to, play this game because they have an incentive? And how do you fight that?
Yeah, so when you talk about fraud, really, you got to think about constituents involved. And the only reason for fraud to exist is someone's trying to steal money effectively out of a system in an untraceable manner. And in our environment, we work with the game publishers, then we work with the game advertisers, and we connect the two pieces. We know who the publishers are because we run them through a sign-up process. We have to authenticate them. We make it pretty difficult so that they go through a two-step authentication process and then sign up, and we know everything about them. So the odds of a publisher being fraudulent in our system is not high, but there still could be people who sneak in. And then a couple of years ago, when we noticed that people were starting to take fraudulent steps in mobile, we had to build systems to detect, hey, is the download percentage ratio from a single app more fraudulent in appearance than another app? And the reason it works for a platform like ours is, and this is a little bit different than what traditional desktop advertising was, where fraud runs rampant. We don't sell impressions. We don't sell clicks. We sell installs, and then we sell installs with post-install activity. So we actually know, like I said, the example of you spend $1.50, you made $3. With all of our advertisers, we know the amount of money they generate, and fraudsters are not willing to spend money to generate fraud. Then they lose money.
What's the average app game install these days in the United States? What's it cost to get something?
Totally varied. It depends on the vertical.
10, 20 bucks?
Yeah, so
that's what I heard.
if you take a much more complex game, which is more narrowly targeted, it can go as high as $50, $100.
Wow.
Yeah, but those aren't mainstream games, and they monetize incredibly well. So I'm talking like a core game that is very niche in audience.
What would an example of something like that
Like
be?
a fighter type of game. Like Game of War back in the day was a good example of a game that was very highly targeted to an audience, and it's just hard to market. So the costs go up. I don't know what the rates are, but they just skyrocket over time because you can't find users, but the users you find are really valuable. Then you've got now these mainstream titles that are what we call hyper casual. And if you remember,
hyper casual,
yeah,
I like that.
New genre. But if you remember,
There's a jargon watch for you. Hyper casual.
You ever heard of Flappy Birds, which you probably have when they blew up?
Yeah, that wasn't that Angry Birds? Oh, no, Flappy Birds is where you press the button, you go between the two pipes.
It was the most frustrating freaking game that you will ever play. You scored like a 2 and you felt like the world's biggest idiot, and then you had your neighbor in your office scoring a 15 laughing at you.
Yeah.
So anyways, that kicked off this trend where you started getting these mainstream sort of office viral games that took off. And those games have so much popularity that you can get tons of downloads for like 15, 20, 30 cents an install. So there's a huge spectrum. It just depends on the type of app.
And so if somebody were to do fraud in today's day and age, the person paying for the install is not just looking at, was this installed? And you know the phone that installed it, right? There's some ID, I guess.
There's an ID for advertisers, yes.
Got it. Then you could just say, well, did the person open the app ever again or not? And then charge a different rate for those users, or they can net it out in their...
Well, it's all performance. So the advertisers are only spending when they make money. So automatically fraud is less of a problem. If everything is measurable, you only spend when you make. Now you're optimizing percentages because you do want to get rid of fraud 100% of the way.
Right.
And then the other part of that is our systems, once you get data and technology, you can offset, you can look for patterns.
Totally.
You start seeing some abnormal behavior and you eliminate it. And as simple as that. So we'll go suspend a partner that's detected a fraud automatically and it just runs through the system. And all the big companies in mobile advertising do that now.
Yeah. And what do you think about privacy now today with this sort of iPhones always listening, always knowing your location? Is that actually an issue for consumers that you worry about, or
it depends? So,
does it impact your business at all?
Well, the iPhone or any mobile device, you have to consent to share certain forms of data. And when you play a game, you don't share anything, really. You're not. There's no location data.
Turn on your microphone and give us your location to play Candy Crush.
If you agree to do that, but the app stores themselves do say don't ask for things that make no sense with your business model. Let's say you download a weather app and you share your location with the weather app. The onus is on the publisher of that app to make sure they're not sharing your location data with other sources behind it. When we operate in games, there's just no data transacting. There's no PII. We don't live in a world...
What's PII?
Personally identifiable information.
Oh, right.
So when you're a game publisher, you don't know anything about the individual. I don't even know if it's an individual, male or female. All you basically know is IP address and ID for advertisers, and you use the app and the app graph to make a better advertisement. That's it.
Yeah, interesting. So you took the time to write some blog posts. What are your thoughts on creating a parent-friendly culture, and why is that a focus for you? I mean, obviously you got 5 kids, as we discussed. I got 3.
I was going to say I got 5 kids.
Yeah.
We had.
Well, what have you learned though? You seem to think it's an advantage.
I think what happens when I started my career, I was hyper-focused. I worked a lot of hours, and I had no kids. But I wasted a lot of time, too. I mean, I'd lay around on Sundays watching football all day.
Yeah.
I lost the ability to screw around once I had a bunch of kids.
Yep.
You get much better at time management. You get much more organized and structured about thought. And so what I found as people mature in their life is they just mature. They process problems better. They figure out different outcomes faster, and they can make decisions. And parents end up working less absolute hours, but tend to do a lot more with those hours. That's not to say parents are more efficient than folks without children. It's just to say, even though there's less hours in the day, there's nothing wrong with being a parent while you're in the startup environment if you know how to manage your time. Just like there's nothing wrong with being single in a startup environment.
I think overall, I will say that parents are more efficient than non-parents. I know that maybe that would seem controversial, but all the evidence I see is that the people I know with kids, and now that I have them, I look back, are ruthless about their time management. And when you're younger, you have more time than money or things to do, and you're looking to fill your time. Once you get the kids, they just suck every waking hour that's not work from you, and you're just going to have to be ruthless about it. It is absolutely a trend I see.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing we do is meeting-free culture. So we try to have pretty much no meetings, but this is aligned with just managing time.
Yeah.
If I'm in a meeting nowadays that's not relevant to me, I walk out 5 minutes in. There's no point for me to be there wasting time.
Yeah.
And when I started my career, that felt rude. But we don't want to have that feel rude in the company. We want to structure it so that people aren't wasting time. There's no reason for people to sit around in a meeting and waste an hour just for the appearance of being in that meeting. And so we try to foster this behavior throughout the company, whether it's parents or not. I think me as a parent got me to a place where I had to learn how to manage my time better, and I built processes in the company to try to foster a good product.
What's your secrets? How did you level up in terms of efficiency?
I'd say my wife is probably the secret sauce there. She helps take care of the kids.
Right.
And then I can focus on the job. But really it is that there's 24 hours in the day minus whatever you sleep. You just learn how to use all those hours efficiently.
Yeah, I always tell founders, you better have spousal buy-in, because if you're going to go on an entrepreneurial journey, I mean, you could at some point, it just takes over your life and you've got a competitor, or you're running out of money, or your deal that got frozen because of State Department or Justice Department, like looking into it or whatever. Like, it's intense. And if your partner doesn't buy in, oh boy, that can cause real serious problems. What are your thoughts on hiring from within and developing talent? Is that a function of how terrible the market in here, Silicon Valley, is, and how competitive it is that you like to grow talent?
You know, we know. So we've been able to do really well in business. So I've gotten resumes from all sorts, plenty of people who have progressed in their career. But I found a couple things. One is we're in an industry that's just evolving really quickly and brand new. So it didn't exist 10 years ago, right? People with a resume and a history and an MBA from the top school aren't any more advanced at knowing our industry and being able to learn the products that we operate with than someone who's coming out of high school. And so I looked at that and went, I can either pay up and get the person with a lot of experience and flip a coin. They may or may not be better than the person who graduated high school and dropped out of college. And so, we land somewhere in between. But as a company, what we ended up doing was, we haven't hired any MBAs because they try to come in and want the senior role and want the incremental pay, and I just can't justify it. So we end up hiring a lot of graduates with top grades, or pre-college, dropped out of college or high school and just got into their career, but know the space. And then we bet on them over time. And so my head of one of our publishing arms, Lion Studios, he's now 26, I believe, and he started with us at 19. And my head of corp development is now 22 or 23. He's VP of Corp Dev. He's been working for me for a few years now and is dropped out of high school to get into the space. So what I've found is take a bet on really bright, hardworking individuals, grow their talents, teach them how to manage, teach them how to scale, and you've got the best people in those roles versus hiring from outside.
And so you have to take a chance on the folly of youth, maybe a little more mentoring, but they're more available, and you probably get 2 for 1 or 3 for 1 versus the MBA.
I've just found they're hungrier.
That's the issue?
They're scrappy. They want to prove themselves. If you get an MBA from Harvard, you proved yourself in a way to society with that Harvard MBA. You let everybody know you went to Harvard and got an MBA.
Absolutely.
If you dropped out of college, you're not telling people, hey, I dropped out of college. We don't broadcast the universities of our exec team. I mean, there's nothing to talk about there.
Yeah.
It's not the Harvard, Stanford, MIT group, but every single person on my exec team and down, everyone's scrappy, everyone works really hard, everyone's a good person. And if you combine all those skills, you end up with a really strong team.
Yeah, the entitlement that can come from hitting one of those big schools and, graduating from it can be tremendous for people. They just think that they know better. And even if they haven't done it before because they've performed at a high level, but you're kind of got to prove it all over again when you're going into a field that you don't know the answers to, right?
Everyone starts at the same place, the same way you're born day one. You got to learn how to walk. You got to learn how to talk.
Yeah.
You're starting the same way at a startup. Doesn't matter if you got an MBA or not. And if you start with less, you tend to work harder to gain more.
Yeah, I had Patty McCord on. She was the HR person from Netflix, which has got a cutthroat culture. And they were just like, we want adults who are willing to take ownership. Adult means you act like an adult. You could be a 20-year-old adult or a 40-year-old or a 60-year-old. We don't care. But we want people who want responsibility and who want to own the outcome, as opposed to what I see a lot is people think they're working hard because they put in hours, but they're not looking at their efficacy and results. And I'm trying to change everything I do right now to just reward people on outcomes and get them out of this delusion that because they feel their feelings, which are worthless, make them feel like they're working hard. That doesn't mean anything. What matters is what was the outcome of the effort you put in. If you put in an hour and you got 10x the effort of somebody who put in 12 and they feel exhausted, mazel tov to the person who put in 1 hour.
For sure. I mean, if my team could work 1 hour a day at the same level of productivity, by all means, go do whatever you want outside of that.
Yeah.
But the other key is making sure you take care of those who shine, regardless of where they start at. Because what I found is a lot of companies just promote on a schedule and promote as you reach a certain point, you're going to the next logical step, but we'll never pluck a star out from the bottom and move them to the top. And we live that all day long. A lot of my managers are started at the company, showed a couple years of excellence, and I promote 4 levels up because I don't care. Yeah. All that matters is you're putting the best talent you've got in the most impactful roles, and you deal with any ramifications of that. And we don't play politics internally, which I think derails a lot of the productivity that could be gained otherwise.
Yeah, I'm a no politics guy. Whenever somebody starts getting political, I just stop them in. I said, politics makes me coming to work miserable. I can retire at any time, so please don't make it miserable for me to come to work. It is the greatest threat ever. People are like, oh, that makes total sense. It's just like politics is, I don't know what people are hoping to gain from politics in a startup, because the goal of a startup is to grow fast and delight customers. There's no room for politics.
All they should care about is I want to put myself in the place to learn as much as possible. And then I know that for the rest of my life, I'm going to make more. But then don't play politics in the middle. Otherwise, you're not going to survive.
Yeah. I don't understand what, it must be that I think the people who are into politics, like probably in their childhood, had to navigate their family situation or had some experience in their youth where politics actually benefited them. It was a survival technique, right? Like, between mom and dad or sisters and brothers, aunts and uncles, whatever it was, they must have gotten this weird signal that being political either let them survive or thrive.
Or they worked at a big company and it was a requirement to survive and thrive.
Right.
And so we've stayed away from that too. We've hired nobody from big companies.
Yeah, that's total death. Big company people are...
Slow down.
Well, you know what the thing is? I having been on the board of a lot of companies, like you always have this moment... You must have had it where somebody brings in the resume, this person is amazing. And then you bring them in and you get 3 months in and you realize they're leaving to go play golf. They're not driven and everybody else is doing the work. And this person's like outdated and kind of punching a clock. And you're like, wait, what happened to this person?
I've done it a few times and yeah.
It never works.
No, it doesn't.
It never works. And then all these boards and VCs, I'm on the board with some of these VCs, these dipshits sometimes are like, oh yeah, this person, they did these 4 companies. They were at Sun Microsystems, and you're like, Sun Microsystems? What? Yeah, like, really? Is that applicable for this company? I don't think so. All right, so wrapping up here, and great job today on the pod, by the way, just tons of great information. Want to check off a couple of important things. You started Lion Studios, so you sucked at making apps. You built a marketplace for apps, and now you started making apps again? What changed?
So publishing is, and really gaming is really analytical in nature. And what we do on the publishing side is we work with a whole bunch of app developers who build the content and we put it through a testing environment and then an optimization environment. So we test hundreds of games a month, and then you find the ones that resonate with the consumer audience. The crazy thing of being a marketer myself for over a decade is I still have no idea what consumers want. You never know. And that just means test, test, test. And so we foster this environment of testing, and that comes out in this publishing arm. We test a bunch of games, find the ones that resonate, take those, publish those, and then iterate on them going forward.
So does that mean you own them, or you're in partnership with those
We're in partnership
indies?
with the developers, yeah.
Got it. Wow, now that's a smart business, because you have all the data of what works.
We can generate. We have the knowledge of what could work, and we have frameworks to test and improve what does.
So there are still indie app developers out there, 2 or 3 people
all over the
working
world,
from.
all over the world, making way more money than you can imagine.
Really?
Yeah.
Like 3 people living in Kyoto, and they just crush it.
Maybe making $10 million a year.
What?
Yeah.
And then you just say to them, "We'll underwrite the paid marketing."
What's happening around the world is developers have such a high amount of opportunity to make money off games. 1-2 people just launch a game, and then they don't know how to scale it. They don't have the funding to scale it, so they look for a publisher. We'll partner with them and then do a revenue and profit share, and they're making immense amounts of money off these relationships.
And then you have some exclusive for some period of time for that game.
For a lifetime of the game, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because you're partnering up.
Do you publish it under your iTunes handle or theirs?
It's all published under Lion Studios.
Yeah, because then does that help, like having the benefit of like a studio account?
Consumers start recognizing the brand over time, yeah.
You know what? I'm addicted to this like Tower Madness games, and I'm always looking at these independent publishers. Like I play Kingdom Rush. I don't know if you know that game.
Yeah.
Like it's some Brazilian company, and then there was this Limbic Studios, which does Tower Madness. I just love tower defense games. You know this genre?
I love it, but it's sort of diminished in utilization on mobile. But yeah,
I know. I'm trying to figure out. I would like literally pay these people. I mean, this sounds nuts, but I would pay them $500 to make a new version. Like, there's so many addicted people to these. I consider it like this new version of chess, because I like playing backgammon, chess, poker, all these games.
Yep.
But tower defense to me is like and that's why I think I liked Age of Empires when that was out. It really feels like some like more advanced version of chess because there's moving objects. So it's sort of my own
super
arcade.
strategic. I mean, it's old school like Civilization. Like these strategic games do exist. They're just more niche still today. But it's a genre that's growing.
Amazing. Hey, you're not public. You haven't filed. What's the story? I mean, they got this great, amazing market here. You've got the investors who likely would want you to go public. How do you think about an IPO at this stage of your company?
Well, the funny thing is I've made my original investors a huge return. And KKR, we closed around with them last summer. So it's been less than a year. So we've got, typically investors do want their star companies to go public, but they're in at a point in time, and we've grown so much since that point in time that they're looking at it on a long-term horizon. Typical investor horizon is 5 to 7 years, as you know, on a return. And so we're early in the cycle of bringing on an outside investor.
Yeah,
I mean, this is still year 1. So they've been in for not even a year yet. And so we're exploring the options, but KKR is so good at the capital markets, both public and private. We've been able to raise as much funding as we need private. We just raised another $400 million of debt just to put some powder on the balance sheet and have more acquisition capital. And so they've been so helpful there that we look at it like, okay, IPO is just a fundraising event.
Right.
When we need to go access billions of dollars, we'll go public. But in the meantime, we've got a good story, good growth, and we are still growing so quickly to just keep it private, keep running it, and then see where we go.
Yeah, so that makes total sense. If you think about, people are deriding a little bit like this, taking your time going public. But if you figured something out, going public means you need to turn over your cards, like in poker. You got to show your cards. And showing your cards on the flop is a little bit dangerous because people can start doing the odds and being like, you know what? I have pot odds to call you, right? So, you turn over your set, but the other person's got a flush and a straight draw, and they're like, I'm 32%, and I got 2 cards to come, so I'm actually kind of like 64%, and there's some kill cards. Whatever, they start doing the math. You may get copied. You don't have to turn over your cards. You can stay private for another 5 years while they fund you. Yeah. And they know the public market, so they're willing to take on that risk of privately funding you.
Well, we're so big now. I'm not as worried about copycats because there's so many copycats in marketing and gaming.
Yeah.
And we've had to surpass all that. But the way I look at it is we're making a lot of money. We're growing quite quickly. We're still growing 50% plus year over year, pretty close to triple digits year over year. And at our level of scale, if you can pull off those growth rates and you're making money along the way, you have an option.
Yeah.
If we were burning cash and we needed to go raise, like some of the IPOs that are coming out right now, of course, play into the hot market. But for us, it's all about just building a business that I could see lasting decades plus. And then I have a lot of confidence I could sell it to the public, which I do today. When there's a necessity to raise billions of dollars, we'll go out there.
All right. And closing up here, you're an angel investor. You made 10 investments, 20 investments?
It was about 25 or so.
25.
Yeah.
Look at you. You got the bug.
No.
Take me through a couple of the winners.
My winners ended up friends who just started businesses.
Yes.
And I got in seed round. But a company like Game Time is doing really well.
Awesome.
I got in with Brad at the beginning. Epic Stories with this guy Saran who started it. These are, $4 million valuation rounds 7-8 years ago when that was what you were raising at.
Yep.
I got to a point where I think out of my 25, 4 or 5 are 100x plus at this point.
Oh my
so
God.
I had good returns, and they're still paper.
Lord.
They're not.
So
they're not
you have 500x on your portfolio.
But then, like of the other 20, I'm not get I'm
They're all
swinging for
zeros.
the fences. They're a bunch of zeros. So
Of course.
what ends up happening is I thought I could get in and influence the outcome. The good ones don't ping me. The bad ones were pinging me far too much.
Bridge. Can we get a bridge? Can we get a bridge?
Or, hey, I need advice. What do I do? I'm like, oh my God, I'm wasting all my time on these losers. The winners aren't pinging me, so I stopped. A couple
Welcome
years
to my
ago,
life.
I gave up. Yeah, I don't envy
This is my life. It's basically, and I have come to peace with it, because what I tell everybody is like, we are hospice workers at times. Not to make light of cancer and like that. I know people are very sensitive these days, but literally sometimes you're with a founder and it's like, you're going to die. It's over. We're going to pull the plug.
the Band-Aid.
We're going to rip off the Band-Aid, take an edible, take some mushrooms. You're going to die. This is it. This is the end. It's terminal cancer. But here's the good news. You put another quarter in the video game and you start over.
Yeah.
It's not real life. It's your startup dying and you get to do 3 more. This is your 3rd startup?
This is my
4th?
5th, but 3rd
Fifth,
successful
3rd
one.
major.
Yeah.
3rd successful. Don't count the failures.
I don't mention the losers, yeah.
Yeah, somebody was trolling me. Alexis Ohananen from Reddit they did that thing where you list your 5 jobs. So I listed my 5 jobs, and Alexis is a little obsessed with me. And he's like, what about Mahalo and Netscape, like your failures? And I was like, I don't count the failures, Alexis. Like
That's a blackout period in
I
history.
was like, yeah, come on. Why would I count any failures? Nobody cares that I didn't win the championship one year. All that matters is what championships you did. I mean, nobody's going to remember LeBron lost whatever. I think LeBron lost more championships than he's won.
Yeah, for sure.
And nobody's like, LeBron's a loser.
You
They're
remember the block. That's it. Remember the good moments.
Yeah, you're like, this guy won twice in Miami, once in Cleveland, then he retired in LA. Good for him. All right, listen, continued success. Congratulations. And thanks for sharing your wisdom. Adam Foroughi. And check out AppLovin. I'm assuming you're hiring.
We're hiring, yeah.
AppLovin.com/jobs.
AppLovin.com. Yep.
Careers.
Jobs,
Whatever.
I think.
Jobs. Go get a job. Where are you guys based?
Palo Alto, San Francisco, and then all over international.
Are you rocking the remote work? You believe in that?
We're spread globally, and I haven't even been to a couple of our offices, so yeah,
Wow.
I believe in it.
What about working from home? Are you in? Yeah.
Not really into that.
Yeah. See, it's a hard one for me. I think for some companies it works if you go full remote, and then for other companies like my investment company, like you need to be in the office.
Depends on the person. I've found some people can pull it off, but some people don't work when they're working from home, and I don't like that.
It's like 1 out of, I think, 3 or 4 people are the type of people who should work from home. It's like journalists work great from home because they don't want to take a shower. They want to sit there and write.
Yeah.
And what they do is a solitary pursuit. The more they're interrupted, the worse it is. Then you go to somebody like a developer. Again, it works because they don't want to take a shower. They want to just get to work. They may work odd hours, and they don't want to be interrupted. But sales or investing or product or design, these are things where you have to collaborate, and being interrupted is actually part of the process, is having a debate about it. So
For
I don't
sure.
think it works for those categories, or not well. But the tools are getting better. I have to say, like, I was doing Slack the other day, and I did the have you ever done like a Slack conference or like Zoom or Google Hangouts? Like the stuff is really starting to work.
It is great, yeah.
And I used to be I refused to take any investment meetings over these web conferencing things for a while. And because I was just like, I just want to look into somebody's eyes. But now I'm starting to do it, and like the quality's so good.
There's something to be said about reading someone's body posture, seeing them in person, though.
You play cards?
I used to. I
little
got
poker?
too addicted. Yeah, I was a derivatives trader out of school, so part of
Really?
my training was poker.
You want to play poker tonight? I might have a seat open.
Absolutely not.
Texas Hold'em?
I got addicted and I don't play poker anymore.
Listen, we're going to play down in Palo Alto.
Yeah, that's absolutely
It's very
not
close
what
to
I
your
wanna
house.
do. You're telling like a ex-alcoholic, like, hey, we're having drinks tonight. Let's go.
All right, listen, I'm a compulsive gambler. We're both founders. We're both angel investors. I'm just saying we play a little cards. We spread a little thing. We put a little
Pre-5
sushi
kids,
out.
I would have been down, but I don't need to go into that dark hole again.
Oh boy! All right, I think I got him on the hook, audience. I think this guy might be playing in the game. You might be coming to the big game that doesn't exist. Please don't ask for a seat at the big game. It's filled up if there was a game, but there is no game. It's not the game you're looking for. All right, continued success, Adam, and thank you, Emmy Award-winning producer Jackie. Thanks, Sir Charles, killing it, and Master Nick, great job. Also to our sales team, Grant and Matt, thank you for delighting our partners and sponsors. Great job there. And we'll see you at Launch Festival Sydney in June, at launchfestivalsydney.com. And we'll see you at Launch Angel Summit. If you're an angel investor, early stage seed investor, or early stage VC, launchangelsummit.com in Napa. 3 days in Napa with me, eating at all the great restaurants, drinking wine, and playing pétanque. Maybe shooting some guns, whatever. It's a good time. All right, we'll see you all next time on This Week in Startups. Bye-bye.